Hello and welcome back to In This Slant. Today is September 12th. It's also episode number 75 for us for today. As you guys can see again, we got a two-man crew. I'm joined with Dustin. As always, my name is Brady. Before we get into this video, make sure you guys drop a like on this one and subscribe if you're new around here, of course. We're going to be recapping week one and, of course, talking about Thursday Night Football because, man, was week one a movie. But before we get any further, how are you doing? Just in general, and how are you doing after week one, man?
You know, week one went really well for me. The Raiders, you know, they squeaked out a win, but also I'm in 3 fantasy leagues, and I won all 3 of them as well, so doing pretty good football-wise, and then other than that, everything's all right in life.
Yeah, that's the best way for a year to start, I would say. I thought I was losing in fantasy this week after I was seeing Ridley go off on me. Brian Robinson scored a touchdown, but somehow I squeaked away a win in fantasy, and of course, my Commanders won as well, so I'm doing pretty solid as well. But man, let's just get straight into things because week one was pretty crazy. Now, before we go and talk about every single game, we do want to show how predictions went for week one for us. So this is how they went, if I can click it. So Dustin and Jared are in the lead right now at both 11-5, and I am in last place at 8-8. No one went under 500, so that's good, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, tough week for me, I'll say. I think I got off to a hot start last year, so this is different for me. So we'll see how this goes. But no one's island worked out this week as well. Obviously, I chose Broncos. That didn't work out. Alex didn't have one. Jared had the Panthers as an island, and Dustin had the Steelers as an island. And none of them worked out. But then there was a couple games we all disagreed on. And obviously, as you see, Dustin and Jared right now leading the way. We will have week 2 predictions on Friday. But let's just go and get started. We already talked about Lions and Chiefs, Alex and I, so we won't start with that one. Let's go over Bengals and Browns, man. Because Bengals and Browns... now, you and I chose the Browns, but we both thought that Joe Burrow was going to be out for this game. But the pick held true still, and the Browns went out on a very good defensive performance. And Joe Burrow and the Bengals, absolutely terrible. Just so bad in general. Joe Burrow only 14 of 31 for 82 yards. Yeah, and Jamar Chase only 1, or I guess that was a rush. Sorry, 1. He had 5 receptions for 39 yards. T. Higgins had no catches at all. Just an absolute abysmal performance by the Bengals, an absolute shutout pretty much by the Cleveland Browns. And that was another reason why I won fantasy, by the way. I was playing a Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase stack, so that really helped me out because those two did absolutely horrible. But biggest takeaways from you on this game?
I mean, the Browns defense, like Brady kind of said, just really stepped up. It really did shut them down. I will admit it was really hard. We had 4 games on the TV at the time and 2 on the side, so I really wasn't paying attention to this game. But you can just tell that the Browns defense dominated. Me and Brady were not feeling confident of our Browns pick. Once we found out Joe Burrow was playing, and the fact that like Joe Burrow played and it still held up was kind of crazy. And like in a dominating fashion like this too, 24-3 is kind of insane for when you like think of the Bengals roster. You always think they're gonna score like 20 points minimum. So.
Yeah, and another thing we've been asking all year is how is Deshaun Watson going to look? And nothing too impressive as far as his stat line is concerned. I know he had some really nice rushes in this game, so he still has the mobility getting away from plays and all that. But only 154 yards in this game, 1 touchdown, 1 reception. Wasn't very efficient. All around, just kind of an ugly game in a way. In general, NFL Week 1, there wasn't a ton of touchdowns scored compared to like 2 years ago. But the Browns, go away with a 24-3 victory. So that was a good start for them going into week 2. We'll talk about their next game when we get there. Yeah, Texans versus Ravens. I mean, we all kind of thought the Ravens would win this game. I don't know if I have any big takeaways from this one. I guess Dobbins, of course, can't help but feel bad for the guy, man.
You can't stay healthy.
He can't stay healthy. Literally had a terrible knee injury a couple years ago, and then he was seeking a contract this year, never got it, and this could be a career ender, Achilles injury. Absolute unfortunate circumstances to see. Mark Andrews didn't play in this game, but other than that, I don't really have much else to say about this one.
I will say C.J. Stroud didn't look bad from what I watched. Also, I did like what Nico Collins did, but other than that, you kind of knew that the Ravens defense was kind of going to dominate this team, so there's really not much to say about this one as well.
Yeah, so Ravens go out, win 25-9, but for the Buccaneers and Vikings, all of us were on the Vikings, and we were all wrong. The Bucs came out with Baker Mayfield, and they won week 1 and took down the Vikings in Minnesota. Baker Mayfield, somewhat impressive. He had a really clutch rush at the very end to get a first down. Rachaad White wasn't all that efficient, did have 17 carries, But Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Mike Evans, 6 receptions, 66 yards, and a touchdown. And Godwin, 5 receptions for 51 yards. So, I mean, do we expect Baker Mayfield to be this good all season? I mean, it's not like he did anything too crazy. But overall, of course, Jordan Addison scored a touchdown for the Vikings, and Justin Jefferson was doing Justin Jefferson things, but the run game for the Vikings was kind of non-existent. Only 34 rushing yards from Alexander Mattison.
And that kind of scares me this early on in the season because, like, don't get me wrong, like, I know the Bucs defense is super solid, but I did not expect Alexander Mattison to only get, like, 30 yards, like you said. And, like, Baker Mayfield didn't even have that crazy a game. Like, Kirk had 300, like, basically double his yards.
Yeah.
Kirk had double Baker's yards, and literally the Bucs still get on top and win this game. I feel like Vikings defense is something that's always holding them back. But, I mean, it's not even like they dropped a crazy amount of points on the Vikings either as well, though.
Yeah.
Because usually Vikings, I'm used to seeing them get, like, 30 dropped on their head. So this was only 20, so... I mean, their defense might have got a little bit better, but I thought this was a for sure win game for the Vikings.
I thought so,
and
too.
The fact that... Because even Baker, for most of the plays I saw Baker making were not very good, but I did see a couple big ones that he made. That big run was really good. So I mean,
and the touchdown throw to Evans.
Yep, that was nice too. Yep. So I mean, besides that, I mean, I feel like Baker Mayfield played really mid. Other than
yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think after this one, it gives me, I guess, a little bit more hope for Baker Mayfield going forward, but we'll see if it holds up. Panthers versus Falcons. Panthers, of course, didn't really do anything too crazy. Bryce Young, first game, 2 interceptions. The biggest story on the other side is the Falcons, man. The Falcons, they have a way of playing football. We all know that. Especially if you're a fantasy guy, they just love to run the ball. If Arthur Smith can run the ball 100 times a game, he will. He will. Falcons only threw 18 times, only 115 yards from Desmond Ridder. And for fantasy people out there that had Drake London, he literally had 1 target. And this is something I dealt with last year when I had Kyle Pitts, so I'm actually really glad I have no shares of the Falcons. But hey, if you have Bijan, Tyler Algier, both went absolutely off last year, or not last year, last game. Bijan had an insane reception touchdown, was really nice. But, I mean, Dustin, as someone who owns Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier in our league, how happy are you right now to have both of them?
You know, it is kind of sketchy because sometimes I feel like I was joking around about starting both of them this week against the Packers defense, but I also have David Pierce as like my flex right now, who's also in a good matchup. But then I'm like, I cannot just start both Bijan and Algier when I literally have David Pierce on a good matchup. But then I'm going to be mad as well if I start Bijan. He gets me like 15, and then Tyler Algier on my bench scores me like 30 or something.
Yeah,
so.
I don't expect, when Falcons are in like negative game scripts when they're playing a better team than Carolina, I don't expect they're going to be able to do this. But yeah, Carolina, I mean, Jared thought they could win for some reason. I never got his reasoning for it. I think his biggest thing was saying he wanted to see, or he believed in Bryce Young, but obviously that didn't really work out too much. So Falcons going to win 24-10 division game. I think the Falcons are one of the teams that could win this division. So
I was about to say that too. Is that I do think that you can actually see the Falcons upset a lot of teams this year. I think that even though their passing game is really not there yet, Desmond Ridder did make one good throw that I saw to Kyle Pitts. It was like an actual good throw. So yeah. I feel like you're just gonna see them run a lot more early. Like, no matter what, Arthur Smith's running the ball.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
I feel like you can see like a 60-40 split eventually where you start seeing them pass the ball a little bit more once Desmond Ridder starts getting more into rhythm, I guess.
I could see it maybe too. But so far, I mean, last year had Mariota for most season, and they didn't trust him to throw the ball. We all know what Mariota looked like last year.
And
so
I honestly think that the Bijan-Tyler Algier duo can literally like win them games too.
Oh yeah, I mean it did right there. I mean it was against a weaker Panthers team, and then Patterson was injured this week, so I don't know how he'll be involved, but that could be 3 guys that that Arthur Smith is dialing up the run game for, so that should be fun.
Well, but they also said they're going to be working Cordell in the passing game.
That makes sense too. I think they could use another wideout anyway, even though they don't throw it, but you know. Commanders Cardinals. This was game of the week. Let's be honest. No, I keep saying that. As a Commanders fan, I was honestly horrified for a second we were about to lose this game. We go down at the half. Cardinals defense got so many turnovers. Gibson puts the ball on the ground. Sam Howell had a tipped interception. We have another fumble at the end. Sam Howell gets strip fumbled literally right before the half is over. It was just such a disastrous part of this game that I was so worried, but Commanders crawled back on top and they won this game. I just wanted to win this one. This is the one that I was like, bro, if we lose this, I'm not showing my face anywhere. We won it, thankfully. It should not have been as close as it was, but hopefully better days are to come for this offense because I was not happy with what I was seeing for the most part of this game. It was just an ugly game. I didn't think we ran the ball enough. I don't want to go too in depth because again, this is a game that the Commanders should have won. I will say though, I'm going to warn everybody who's going to be playing the Cardinals this year. They were kind of headhunting. It felt like there was a lot of dirty hits. I'm not saying the Cardinals are intentionally doing it, but it seemed like they were trying to kill Sam Howell out there at times. So that kind of worries me. I wonder if that's going to continue, but we'll see. But next game, Jags Colts, man. This one was a fun one.
Yeah,
AR-15, pretty good game from him. And for a second there, it looked like the Colts actually may win this game. They were up, I think, at one point.
Yeah, because they got like the interception, or that was it an interception that was a pick six, or I think it was a pick six that scored them a touchdown, which got them to 21 points, and they had the lead. But then obviously Anthony Richardson went out towards the end of it too. So I mean, Trevor Lawrence and them just got the job done. But
yeah,
for me, it was a really impressive game for Anthony Richardson, especially like. This is like a really good game to prove yourself as well. This is like one of the better. This is the best team in your division.
Oh, for sure.
So the fact that you put out probably the best fight we're going to see out of all these teams in this division against them.
Yeah.
And seeing AR do what he did, everyone should have known that the rushing upside was already there, no matter what, especially for like fantasy wise. But to see him do that, like he didn't throw the ball a crazy amount. Like he kind of did, but
37 attempts is, I think, is average.
But like, I mean, for like what people thought he was gonna throw nothing. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So
like,
and then,
like Justin Fields or something.
Yeah. So people thought he was just gonna be there for the rushing upside, and he had 40 rushing yards with a rushing touchdown, so that really helped as well. But I feel like besides him being kind of injured this week, I think he's a must-start quarterback, unless you probably have one of the top dogs, which we'll talk about some of the top dogs later, because I feel like quarterback, all the top dogs kind of did mid. So.
Yeah. But Travis Etienne was great. Tank Bigsby did rob a touchdown from him. But the biggest question, or the biggest story from this game is Calvin Ridley's back.
Yeah.
Calvin Ridley is back. 8 receptions, 101 yards, and a touchdown. What a beautiful game from Calvin Ridley. As I said, when I was watching it, I was playing him in fantasy. I was like, oh, I'm done for. I'm losing this week. And thankfully I didn't lose. But yeah, shout out to the Jags, man. They're going to be a team that's going to be a lot of fun. And another thing I want to
mention, though, about the Jags part as well, is I do think that you're still going to see Travis Etienne getting the majority of the workload. You might see Bigsby in the red zones for touchdowns every once in a while. But also, the other thing I want to talk about is how Christian Kirk, his usage is way down.
Yep.
Especially for how much they paid him a year. For you to see Calvin Ridley and Zay Jones be the main 1 and 2 on the 1 and 2 set wide receiver sets is kind of crazy to me that
I know with
Christian
how much
Kirk's
he's
paying
getting paid.
that.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, I do love Zay Jones. Don't get me wrong.
Too.
I think he's very talented, but just the fact that they're paying him that much money and he's not going to be doing anything to help the team really, it's just.
I mean, he'll be out there in the slot. That's still an important position, but yeah, I definitely did not expect that. We'll see if that continues that way.
And I guess we should have kind of, because Trevor Lawrence did like Zay Jones a lot last year.
He liked Kirk as well too.
But,
I mean, they're all three good. I think they're pretty solid.
They're all good, but it's just the fact that Christian Kirk's getting paid that much, and if his role is going to be a lot less, it's going to be really scary for the Jags that they paid him.
Yeah, but for this next team, man, most disappointing performance of the week by far.
I thought this would be one of the better games of the week, and
the Steelers, man, Kenny Pickett looked so bad. I mean, he had some accuracy issues. I get the 49ers defense is fantastic, so I definitely understand that perspective, but Deontay Johnson also goes out in this game, but the game was kind of out of hand before that anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Brock Purdy was pretty damn good, though. I mean, he kind of just left off, kind of continued where he left off from last year before he got hurt, obviously, in the playoff game. But McCaffrey, of course, is absolutely extraordinary. 152 yards. I believe he's leading the league right now, unless Breece Hall overtook him last night, but I don't think he did because he didn't get enough carries, or he would have. If Breece Hall was a full go, he probably would have. And of course,
Dalvin Cook was not there. Breece Hall would have.
Yeah, Brandon Ayuk, 8 receptions, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns. My fellow, podcast here with Dustin actually is a Brandon Ayuk owner, so he's pretty excited about what Ayuk did for him, for his team, but.
Yeah, Breece only got 127.
Yeah, I was about to say. I think if Breece Hall was a full go, but man, what do you think about Ayuk going forward?
I kind of already expected this. I really did think that Brandon Ayuk, yes, Debo is definitely the more talented player because I guess they also used him in the kind of what would you call the run game, where they do like the little handoffs to him. So that was the main reason why people love Debo so much. But I really think that with Brock Purdy, you can see like he can make a lot bigger throws than Jimmy G can. So you're gonna see Brandon Ayuk make a bunch of big plays. I really did like him going into the season. I have him in both paid leagues. I unfortunately did bench him in one of them because I just had AJ Brown and like Chris Olave, so like I didn't need to start him. But the fact that he went off is just really good sign for me. And like he's my number one receiver in like Brady's league, so like for him to do that and go off, I just think it's going to continue. He might not drop that many points again, but I really think you're going to average. He's going to average like 18 points a game minimum.
I can see it. Yeah, but as I was saying, Kenny Pickett, I mean, there was a lot of hype for him going into this year. The preseason looked phenomenal. From what I was seeing, again, we were watching a bunch of games, but Kenny Pickett's accuracy issues were just pretty bad in this one. 49ers defense is legit, so I'm hoping he'll bounce back next week. I am still a believer in Kenny Pickett. I think he'll be fine going forward. But it's definitely something to monitor. Al Robinson from the grave, 5 receptions, 64 yards, so got involved a little bit there. It's going to suck with no Deontay Johnson going forward. It sounds like he'll be out this next week. And then Cameron Hayward is also going to be put on IR, it sounds like, for the Steelers. Yeah. So that's a big loss for their defense, unfortunately.
And another thing, too, I feel like is that this game is like just a really good game that you wish was close. But I feel like overall the Steelers lineup or roster is still good enough to like put up a fight against most teams. So this is just one of those games where they just got blown out and you kind of have to move on. But yeah, for sure. I feel like against more average teams, the Steelers can definitely hold up. The 49ers defense just dominated this whole game. And I mean, I feel like that's not just on Kenny Pickett because that defense is just really good, man. Yeah. Like the best defense in the league. So I really do think you're going to see Kenny Pickett pick it up. But just to see that's what he did against one of the better teams is pretty scary.
It is. It's alarming for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Titans Saints. Derek Carr comes out and wins this game. I'm going to be honest. This is one of the games I didn't watch too much on Sunday. All I know is that this game sounded like it wasn't very good. Ryan Tannehill, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. I mean, none of us like Ryan Tannehill on the panel anyway. I think all of us are kind of, sold on him. We're not really big believers in him going forward. Sounds like the second string will be Malik Willis. I would not be too surprised if we see him sooner rather than later. Derrick Henry split, the carries with Tajay Spears or the downs or whatever. And DeAndre Hopkins, obviously the big addition over there. 7 receptions, 65 yards. But the main thing, Derek Carr, 305 yards, gets the first win with his team. Chris Olave, solid. And then Rashid Shaheed had the game-winning catch at the end there. When I actually literally just watched a video where Derek Carr told his offense coordinator to give Shaheed a go route. And he told Shaheed, you better just run. And they dialed it up, and it worked out for him. So I think Shaheed is an interesting player going forward. I kind of mentioned him earlier when we were talking about sleepers for fantasy and just in general of guys who could go off. So, but overall, I mean, as a fellow Derek Carr supporter, how do you feel about this one?
I feel like it was a little too close, especially with Ryan Tannehill throwing 2 more interceptions than Derek Carr. You would expect the score to be a lot bigger of a difference, or not maybe like a lot, but like at least a touchdown above him, not only a 1-point game.
Yeah.
But I will say that, like Brady said, Rashid Shaheed looked good, and I feel like that he could easily be the number 2. And then honestly, another thing too is Jamal really kind of like let me down, I guess.
Only 18 for 45.
Yeah. So I really feel like this team's gonna make a really big step once Alvin Kamara comes back. Week 4, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
spend it 3 games.
I'm ready to see that. So as long as the Saints can go like 2-1 to start the season off, and then Alvin Kamara comes back, I think you'll see the Saints take a huge step.
Yeah, definitely. We saw what Derek Carr was able to do with Josh Jacobs. So I think with Kamara, it's gonna kind of bring the same effect, but. We're moving on to your Raiders, man. I want to go ahead and apologize. I picked the Broncos to win this one. Although it was a close game, I thought I was on an island, and I was wrong. So the Raiders come out here and win this one.
Yeah, like we said earlier, none of the islands work. So, but I will mention that Jimmy G did have 1 bad interception, and I did think we were going to lose.
Tipped up in the air.
Yeah, it was a pretty bad one, though, because he was just looking that whole way the whole time. But then you see the replay, and like everyone's moving to the left side of the field. I'm like, what is going on? And so, like, that play was a really bad one. And the only other bad play that I really didn't like is when Luke Masterson hit the kicker and gave them the first down.
Oh, yeah.
I really thought we were losing the game after that, but our defense just held up. I really do think this was a big defensive battle. And I've seen a lot of people diss us, like, oh, it's only a win against the Broncos. But I don't know why that's the saying. Russell Wilson looked better out there. I would just start off by saying that. I'm the biggest Russell Wilson hater. I'm not saying that he looked like old Russ completely or anything like that, but you really did see him like being a lot more mobile, and I definitely think that teams should not just be like tossing away to the side of the Broncos. And their defense has always been good, especially like these last couple years. So that just continues. So for their defense being that good, they locked down Jacobs and they basically shut down Devontae. I will admit that Jacoby Myers did have 2 touchdowns, but it's not like he went for like a crazy amount of yards. Like he had 81, Devontae had 66. So it's like the yards were pretty even. It just Jacoby Myers got the touchdown. PS2 did lock down Devontae. I feel like every time I did see Devontae make a catch, it was when PS2 wasn't on him.
Yeah.
So I will say that PS2 might have moved up to my number 1 cornerback this year. I was sleeping.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think Russell Wilson wasn't too bad. 177 yards, 2 touchdowns. Actually was pretty efficient. Only missed 7 of his throws. Javonte Williams came back, only 13 carries, 52 yards. Of course, this team is missing Jerry Jeudy, who I would argue is probably their best wide receiver. Greg Dulcich, I believe, got hurt in this game. But other than that, I mean, the Raiders go on to squeak this one out. We'll see, what happens going forward. If the Broncos can get better from this, or if the Raiders will continue. I mean, it was just a classic divisional game, very close one. Again, a lot of these games in week 1 weren't, not a ton of points scored, it felt like.
Yeah, I feel like it was a lot more like, so there was a couple of big scoring games for sure. Like 49ers was one of them, and then there's another game we'll get into. But I feel like there wasn't like any big blowouts besides the one we'll get to.
Oh, gosh.
Oh god.
All right. Eagles Patriots. This was an interesting one because the game started off like 16-0. I thought, wow, the Eagles are doing their Eagles. They're going to go out there and blow everybody out, and they're going to be good this year. And then the Patriots slowly climbed back in this one. They made it 16-14, and they had a chance at the very end to actually go out and take this game away from the Eagles, especially after Jalen Hurts went out and fumbled. But unfortunately, at the very end, Kayshawn did not put the other foot down, so the Patriots converted, or it was a turnover on downs. Eagles get the ball back, and that was all she wrote. But definitely interesting how this game panned out, because at first there was like the pick 6 and the Eagles just doing their thing, and unfortunately Mac Jones was happening, and then they kind of almost made this an interesting ball game. I will say DeAndre Swift was not involved pretty much whatsoever. It was kind of interesting. I don't expect that to hold that way. I know there's a lot of people excited about Kenneth Gainwell's
But I feel
usage.
like he didn't even do that good for like his usage. 14 carries for only 54 yards. I guess I can't say much because Jacobs also didn't do good against a good defense. And it's not like the Patriots defense is a sleeper or anything. The Patriots defense is good. So maybe I should cut him some slack. And maybe once they have a better defensive matchup, maybe that's when we actually judge Gainwell. But I didn't think that usage was very good, but maybe I'm just sleeping. Because now that I say that, I think of the Patriots defense and I'm like, that's kind of how I feel about Jacob. So
was an impressive stat line by Jalen Hurts, only 22 for 33, 170 yards and a touchdown. He did have 37 rushing yards on the ground. Dallas Goedert didn't get a single catch in this one.
That's actually crazy.
It is very crazy. I actually played him this week in fantasy as well. So, yeah, pretty interesting. T. Higgins, Dallas Goedert, Drake London, all no catches this week whatsoever. I don't expect that to stay that way.
Oh,
obviously.
definitely not.
But Mac Jones, I mean,
300 yards,
316 yards, 3 touchdowns, interception. Ramondre Stevenson, PPR machine, man. I had him last year. And then Kendrick Bourne was absolutely incredible.
Kendrick Bourne, definitely a fantasy pickup maybe this week. But I also feel like Mac Jones almost missed 20 throws. 35 for 54. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and he had the brutal pick 6 at the very beginning as well.
Yeah, so I will give the Patriots props because, dude, I was telling everybody in the room because there was a bunch of us over at the time. Mostly different teams besides 2 Broncos fans. I was like, oh, this game's a blowout. The Patriots ain't doing anything at 16-0. And then the Patriots definitely brought it back and made a game out of it. Stevenson, I both feel like both the running backs didn't do very good for Patriots, so I guess it really was just a passing game. And it really is, I guess, interesting to see, I guess, the Patriots even throw that much, I feel like.
Yeah.
54 times is crazy.
And Hunter Henry was a tight end 1 this week, I believe.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Most fantasy points scored around the league.
He's already picked up, though. So.
Yeah.
Or most leagues he is.
Yeah. But on to the next one, Rams Seahawks. This one surprised me, man. I think we all chose the Seahawks. We thought the Rams were nothing. And, well, I will say that was not the case at all. The
Matt
Rams,
Stafford did look crazy.
Yeah, 24-38, 334 yards. Kyren Williams, Cam Akers ran like crazy. Kyren Williams had the 2 touchdowns. Akers only 22, literally averaged 1 yard a carry. So Akers' efficiency was not great whatsoever. And then Kyron Williams had 2 touchdowns. Akers did have 1 touchdown to salvage the day a little bit. But
that's the only thing that saved Cam
literally
Akers'
the only thing, because 29 yards and 22 carries is crazy. That is horrible. That is terrible. 1 touchdown, like I said, from Akers. But the biggest story was the 5th-round pick, Puka Nacua. Stepping in, some people are calling him Puka Nacua Cup or something like that.
Yeah. The Reyes fan I have him already calls him Little Cup or something, or a little. He's a mini cup or some shit.
Tutu Atwell and him both had 119 yards in this game. Van Jefferson only 24. And other than that, man, the Seahawks, bro. Is Geno Smith going back?
I want to talk about something with the Rams.
Go ahead.
It's kind of crazy that I feel like if you're a fantasy user and your wide receiver room is weak and you have a high claim, I feel like you have to grab Puka. I do kind of like Tutu Atwell more because he had only 8 targets with 6 catches. But Puka got 15 targets, so that's a guy that you're going to have to look at. And I feel like, especially if your wide receivers are weak, he is definitely the #1 fantasy claim going into this week. With Kyron Williams, I will bring up that fantasy thing too because I know he's hyped up as well. I'm not as high on him. I don't like Cam Akers or him really. I feel like they don't really have big play potential. But I will say that with Kyron Williams getting the red zone touchdowns, that I would be a little bit higher on Kyron than I am on Cam Akers.
But proceed with caution because Sean McVay, we don't know what he does.
Yeah.
I mean, they cut Darrell Henderson last year.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know. It's a risk claiming Kyron, but I know that if your running back's really weak and you just need something that you might have to. But I proceed with caution on those. I feel like the wide receivers are a lot more safer though.
Yeah, for sure. But Seahawks, man, disappointing all around. Geno had every single weapon at his disposal. Jackson Smith played this game. DK Metcalf, of course.
Well, they were missing one.
Who?
Noah Fant.
Noah Fant. Okay, that's.
Yeah, I'll get it.
He's all right. Nothing crazy, but. Geno only 112 yards in this game and a touchdown. I don't know if Geno Smith's going to result to the old Geno, but I always thought it was a possibility that he had a fluke season and then, obviously he'll come out and do what he was basically. But we'll see if that continues. This was not a great start to their season. I think they're probably heavily favored in this game. Rams are only going in with Stafford and a bunch of other wide receivers that not a lot of people know about, and they still got it done. 30-13 is actually pretty crazy in my opinion.
Yeah, that is true.
It's not even like the Rams have everything crazy on defense other than Aaron Donald at this point as well. So pretty all around disappointing by the Seahawks. I thought for sure they'd come in here and win this game pretty easily, and that was not the case whatsoever.
Actually, you know what is crazy though is that in fantasy, obviously Brandon Ayuk plays the Rams this week, and it literally says it's a terrible matchup. Like you should not start him.
Well, they're just basing off what happened in week 1.
But I feel like this Rams defense is low key slept on. But at the same time, Geno Smith, every time I did watch him, he looked awful. And everyone's saying that even Kenneth Walker went crazy, but I don't feel like he even went that crazy. I mean, I do think that he's still good, but that game to me, I really don't want to. I'm not going to judge the Rams until I see what they do this week against the 49ers. I think this will be a really big test for them on how good the Rams are actually at this season.
Yeah, for sure.
Because if they can. I don't predict them to beat the Rams, the 49ers, but if they can at least put up like a decent game, like that would be pretty impressive to see out of the Rams put up a good game against them. Absolutely. Especially after what you saw them do last week, the 49ers. So
for real. But game of the week was probably this one, right?
Yeah,
Dolphins,
definitely.
Chargers, Justin Herbert and Tua, toe-to-toe. Tyreek Hill, man. What did he have? 11 receptions, 215 yards, 2 touchdowns. 44 points dropped in fantasy.
Ain't nobody can guard.
No one can guard Tyreek Hill. He even believes that, and I believe him as well. Tua also, I didn't even realize how many yards Tua threw for. 466 yards and 3 touchdowns, man. This was the Dolphins we saw last year. This is what they were. Tua was amazing. If he can stay healthy this year, the Dolphins are going to be scary. Now, unfortunately, Dustin and I did choose against them. I've always loved Justin Herbert. I do like the Dolphins a lot, too. It was a tough game for me to predict, but I just went with the home team. That was kind of my basis.
And for me, I also just thought the Chargers' defense was a little bit better, so I thought that was going to also sway it a little bit, but no one can guard Tyreek Hill. We just got to leave it at that. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Only 11 receptions, 200 yards. That's insane, dude. Like that's like a 25-30 reception kind of game that you would see that kind of stat usually. So for him to do 11 receptions to get that,
pretty wild.
Yeah.
Chargers did have a chance to win this game, especially after I believe the Dolphins kicker is Jason Sanders. He missed the extra point at the very end, and Unfortunately, Justin Herbert got absolutely obliterated, got sacked, I believe, on the final play of the game. So he had 220 yards, 1 touchdown. He did have a sneak-in touchdown as well. Eckler had an amazing performance, 16 carries, 117 yards. Joshua Kelly, very
Also
involved as well,
good.
had the same amount of carries as Austin Eckler. So that's definitely a guy to look at, especially with Eckler kind of being hurt at the moment. They say he's questionable right now, so we'll see what his stats will be going forward. But Keenan Allen, as long as Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Quentin Johnson can stay healthy this year, I think the Chargers will be fine. This was just a really good game against a really tough opponent. I think more often than not we'll see the Chargers win. Although, the Chargers do charger sometimes.
I mean, it's kind of crazy to see that it wasn't really a crazy passing game, but at the same time, Austin Eckler and Kelly just ran all over him, so that kind of just makes up for it as well. But another thing that kind of threw me off about it was, wait, scroll back down real quick. I was looking at something that I can't remember. Oh, fantasy advice. I definitely would not waste a claim on Donald Parham. I was reading a bunch of discussions. I was really joking around, but using a claim even though I won it. But people have really said that he's been this size forever and he barely does anything. So don't make it just because he got one catch or one touchdown that it's going to change anything. Because him and Gerald Everett literally had the same amount of attempts. So literally, like I wouldn't let it get to you. If I'm still picking one tight end, I'm still probably leaning more towards Everett.
Yeah, for sure. But let's talk about another disappointing team, the Bears. The Bears absolutely disappointed me. I thought, we all chose the Bears to win this one at home. It's a new era. Jordan Love is the guy. Aaron Rodgers is no longer here. And the Bears just looked terrible, man. Jordan Love and the Packers went out there, even with no Christian Watson. They get the job done. Aaron Jones has 2 receptions for 86 yards. Also had 9 carries, 41 yards. He did hurt his hamstrings. We'll, monitor his status throughout the week. But Love wasn't like crazy efficient, but 245 yards, 3 touchdowns, still amazing. And Romeo Doubs in this one had 2 touchdowns. So overall, I don't really have much to say about the Packers. I think they're fine going forward. I think when Watson joins this offense, they're going to be even better. Luke Musgrave was solid as well. But the main thing is, man,
I do like Luke. If Luke Musgrave's available and you need a tight end, that's someone easy you would pick up. I feel like he might have some games where he doesn't do good, but that's going to be a tight end that's going to be consistent down the road.
He could have had a touchdown, too, but Jordan Love I think Jordan Love had to throw it off his back foot, so. And
if he would have caught that touchdown, he would have been one of the highest scoring fantasy players this week for tight end wise. So.
The tight ends were bad this week, especially with no Kelsey and Andrews playing, obviously. That kind of hurt it,
too. The
two
best tight ends, probably. So.
Justin Fields, man, 1 touchdown, 1 reception. Just all around, nothing, not a great game out of him. 9 carries, 59 yards. Of course, he's going to get the rushing. The Bears backfield, I mean, who knows who's the guy here? Khalil Herbert, Rashawn Johnson, Foreman, they all had carries.
They all average like this. I mean, obviously Johnson averaged the most yards, but they both average. The other two averaged 3.2 and 3.0. So it's really just a wide open gate. I am probably leading towards the end of the season Roshan, but I feel like next week it's probably still going to be Khalil Herbert.
Yeah, he's the seniority here because Foreman and Rashawn Johnson are new acquisitions for this backfield. Even Cole Kmet had a carry, which is interesting. But Darnell Mooney had a touchdown in this one. There was a point in this game where I thought the Bears were going to maybe strike a comeback, but the Packers shut that down really quickly and scored like right after the Bears did. I think when Mooney caught the touchdown, the Bears were starting to gain some momentum, and the Packers were like, nope, we still got this game, and they took out the Bears. Not impressed by any means by the Bears' performance in week 1. We wanted to come out there, and we wanted them to come out here and absolutely show that they're going to be a tough team in this NFC North, and it just wasn't the case in week 1. DJ Moore, only 2 receptions in this one. Hopefully DJ Moore is not the same DJ Moore from last year where he just isn't getting enough.
Well, I also will say is that he had Jair on him all game, so that's also going to hold him back because Jair is one of the best cornerbacks in the league. So I feel like that's also another thing why Darnell Mooney did good. Not hating on Darnell Mooney, not a guy I would start until you see more production, but he is a guy that if you pick him up randomly or like there's no one else available and you need somebody, I feel like Darnell Mooney is a really good hold. But
yeah, not a bad spot start if you're just absolutely down horrendous. Like I might be down horrendous this week.
So he might have to start.
I might have to go start a Darnell Mooney maybe. We'll see. I have to wait on Watson's status because I know Deontay Johnson ain't playing this week.
Yeah.
But man,
I don't really want to talk about
I wish
game.
Alice could be here for this one, but I know that it would be tough for him to talk about. I can relate to him a little bit because I remember, I think it was a couple years ago when the Cowboys absolutely embarrassed my Commanders, or I think we were the football team at the time. On Sunday Night Football, it was like 50-0 at half or something crazy like that. But this was just an all-around beatdown, man. To not go out there and score anything is crazy. It's insane. 40-0 is insane, bro. Literally, the game starts. The Giants are just moving down the field.
Yeah,
I was
definitely.
like, damn, the Giants look good right now. They're about to go score on this first drive, and then they go for a field goal. Gets blocked, and that's all she wrote from there. The rest of the game did not go the Giants' way. Literally everything that could go wrong went wrong for the Giants in this one. Just absolutely terrible, bro. Just literally not much the Giants could have done. I know, again, I remember watching a beatdown by the Cowboys. I was down horrendous watching it. I might even punched my door at the time. It was just so bad. I take football too seriously, but
I feel like, yeah, this is just, I really don't got nothing much to say. This is just like a complete domination.
yeah.
Like Brady said, I thought this was going to be a really good game. One of my buddies offered, he's like, are you sure you don't want to go home now? Because I had one of my buddies pick me up. I was like, no, this should be a good game. I'll stay and watch it. Just stay and watch a 40-0 blowout. It was pretty rough, especially when, like, it wasn't really the offense really doing anything crazy.
No,
you know
it was
what
the
I mean?
defense,
I mean,
man.
Tony Pollard did get 2 touchdowns, but it was only 70 yards. But, like, Dak Prescott only got 143 yards, so it's not like they were doing anything crazy on offense.
They didn't have to really do anything.
The defense literally just destroyed the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, defense, if you play fantasy, you know Cowboys defense dropped like 36 PPR points, but
Yeah, we had a buddy that ended up playing against someone that had Tyreek Hill in the Cowboys defense, so that was pretty rough because his team was looking pretty good.
it wasn't too bad until you play Tyreek Hill and Cowboys defense. You're probably screwed from there.
Yeah, especially in a 14-man league when like it's hard to get even like 115 points. So
yeah, the Giants, Daniel Jones, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, just all around a terrible game. They do play the Cardinals next week, so I expect the Giants to bounce back big time. I cannot imagine the Giants. I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants go out there and blow out the Cardinals, probably like my Commanders should have done. I think the Giants with Brian Dable, they take care of business. I mean, if they come out there and lay an egg, or they're not going to lay an egg against Cardinals, but if they somehow get in a close game with the Cardinals, I'm just going to start to worry about the Giants a little bit. I'm not too worried about this. Games like this happen, and the Cowboys defense is legit. It's a divisional game.
Arguably the best defense.
Yeah, probably.
It's definitely between them and the 49ers, but as Brady said, I do think that you see the Giants take care of business next week. I will look into it if you switch, especially if you switch defenses every week like me and Brady do. Giants is a defense that you could be targeting as well. Just hoping that they shut down the Cardinals like they should. So, and I really do feel like after a game like that, I hope the Giants bounce back. I mean, that's what you have to hope for at this point after that. So, and going against that team, probably one of the weaker teams in the league right now, they should get it done.
Yep, and to end it off, week 1, Dustin and I were watching this one together, Monday Night Football. This was an insane game. So many storylines. Of course, let's start from the top, man. First play, our first drive of the game for the Jets. You can't help but just feel so sad for Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, man. Tears his Achilles, first drive of the game. Didn't even get to complete a pass to any Jets receivers. There was so much hype, so much momentum, so much belief in this Jets team with Aaron Rodgers joining the fold as a Super Bowl team. There was just so much hype behind it, and for it to end like that is absolutely tragic, man. It really is. So I'm not even a Jets fan. I think a lot of people can relate to this. None of us are really Jets fans, and we're just sad, man. I feel really bad.
I can't even imagine being a Jets fan right now, bro.
How bad would that be? There's so much hype on bringing in a guy like Aaron Rodgers to this team. You've needed a quarterback for so many years, and now you're back to Zach Wilson. The tragic part is Aaron Rodgers getting hurt, but yeah, man, just unfortunate.
And I will say, I want to apologize to all the Jets fans. I joked around with my buddy in fantasy because I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna win in fantasy if Aaron Rodgers gets injured or something." Because like one of the guys I was playing against had Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, and I was like, "Oh, just joking, right?" And then I literally made a bet on Garrett Wilson getting yards on like a betting app, and literally I'm like thinking in my head, I'm like, "Oh, this is perfect." Like Aaron Rodgers versus Josh Allen, and then Aaron Rodgers got injured, and obviously, the one thing that didn't hit on my bet was Garrett Wilson. Everything else I bet on him hit, but Garrett Wilson did it, so that kind of came back to bite me in the butt. But I do feel bad. I was joking about the injury, but I did joke around. I was like, "Oh yeah, Aaron Rodgers is gonna get injured tonight." And at first I thought it was just gonna be like a small injury where he comes back. Even Peyton Manning, I saw his thing where he's like, "Oh, I thought he was just gonna get his leg wrapped and he's gonna be back out there." That's what Peyton Manning said. But just it be an Achilles injury, him be out the whole season is devastating, especially with how good that defense did against the Bills, even without Aaron Rodgers. Dude, the Jets defense looked amazing, dude. So I don't know, but that's another thing too. It's just like,
you think Rodgers hangs it up or he comes back next year?
Yeah, it depends how Zach Wilson does.
I guess we'll see. But the Jets, man, let's talk about the game, though. This game was wild. Josh Allen
played awful.
Awful. Like, literally, same as last year. There were some turnover concerns with him last year, and they carried over into this first game. There was just so many bad throws by Josh Allen. Jordan Whitehead walks away with 3 interceptions. And I saw a tweet today that Jordan Whitehead had a incentive in his contract that if he got 3 interceptions this year, he gets $250,000. Did it in one game. First game, gets this incentive.
That's crazy.
Absolutely insane. But the Bills just, I mean, obviously Diggs was great, but Josh Allen's the biggest story here, man. 3 interceptions. It was just bad, man. I don't know what's up with Josh Allen. He never takes a dive either. He like never protects himself. He's always going out there just taking hits for no reason. That's gonna come back to bite him, man. I believe that he never protects himself. He is a big dude, so I understand that aspect, but to see how many hits he takes is just kind of dumb, in my opinion. I think it's gonna hurt him at one point. I hope not, because I love Josh Allen, but this is not the Josh Allen I want to see going forward. This guy is better than this, and for him to have turnover concerns last year and they carry over into this first game, Jets defense is legit. Let's not take that away from them. But absolutely abysmal performance by Josh Allen.
And that's another thing that has to scare you is just that I don't think you're going to see the Bills just dominate any bad team usually. They kind of remind me of a Ravens kind of. It's like I feel like they lose like the close defensive battle games, like where the defense is a little bit better on the other side, and then they kind of just dominate all the bad teams.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of scared going forward with them, especially like when they're playing good teams. Against bad teams or mediocre teams, I do feel like you still see the Bills dominate, but those throws that Josh Allen were missing were terrible, dude. Some of those throws, you're like, what are you even looking at? Or
just like throwing in general should not have been throwing it. Like the interception when he was targeting Gabe Davis was awful. I mean, there's another one in the middle that was awful. Just, I don't know, man.
Sometimes you didn't have to throw the ball there. Just throw it out, or do something, like try to run a little bit forward. I don't know. Do whatever you got to do. Just don't make the throw, and that's literally what he was doing. And it's even more crazier, like Brady already brought up, that he got 3 interceptions in one player. It literally looked like Josh Allen was just literally targeting him, dude, because he got the interception every single time. And both the Sunday night game and this game were kind of a big disappointment. This game was a lot better, I will admit, but to see Aaron Rodgers go out early, honestly, it kind of scares me that if Aaron Rodgers was in this game, dude, it could have been a blowout as well. Like
for the Jets,
yeah, like the Jets would have blown out the Bills.
Yeah, we will never get to know, unfortunately.
But just that defense, how that defense was
defense
doing,
is playing phenomenal.
And obviously, it seemed like the Jets had no confidence in Zach Wilson to like make a big throw. Like he would have time, and they still wouldn't let him make it. He would just do like the little either short routes or just handing off to his, which don't get me wrong, is nice to hand off to Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook.
That's what it's gonna be now, though, unfortunately, because Zach Wilson, as much as they're saying he's a QB1, the Jets don't believe in him, man. They just don't. I mean, they're going to have to, but there's going to be a way more conservative approach to this team now. This was supposed to be a team that was going to have Aaron Rodgers going to play fast, throw it like crazy, and obviously, have the run game support it. Now they're going to be back to their run game is going to be the strength of this team, in my opinion. I don't think they're going to let Zach Wilson loose. They're not going to. It's going to be like, game manager type stuff. That's what it's going to be for the Jets, and that's how they're going to have to win games now with Zach Wilson. He did have one really bad interception. The touchdown to Garrett Wilson, I mean, that was all Garrett Wilson. Zach Wilson kind of threw it in a very bad spot. He's supposed to throw it in the back shoulder. He throws it right to Tre'Davious White. But Garrett Wilson, phenomenal catch, man. Yeah. Literally plays defense on it and then somehow catches it. So, man, I wanted Garrett Wilson so bad in fantasy. And now that Rodgers is going down, it makes me feel a little bit better that I didn't get him because I don't think Garrett Wilson has wide receiver 1 upside in fantasy anymore.
And I feel really bad about that too as well. Is that he was definitely probably like a guaranteed not a number 1 wide receiver fantasy overall, but I could definitely have seen Garrett Wilson top 5 easily.
Aaron Rodgers fed Devontae like crazy. He was going to do the same thing with Garrett Wilson.
Exactly. So,
and we're not going to get to see it this year. It's just so unfortunate, man. That's all there is to it.
And it's even more crazy that Allen Lazard only had 2 receptions for 46 yards, 23 average yards. That's what I mean. So
yeah. Breece Hall looked explosive, I will say. They monitored him a little bit. They didn't play him every down, obviously. He's going to probably work himself up. But wow, he looked explosive like last year. He was absolutely had some crazy runs.
He had less catches in rushes than Dalvin Cook, and that man just went crazy. Yeah, absolutely. So
what a game!
His one receiving catch went for 20 yards, and then he obviously rushed for like 129 or whatever it was. So that duo is going to be nasty. That's what's going to carry the Jets, unfortunately. I'm so sorry for you guys, or you Garrett Wilson owners, that were ready for him to be your number one wide receiver. Unfortunately,
maybe the ceiling's limited now, but
yeah.
I think he'll still be fine.
He's still going to hit, he's still in solid number 2, I feel like, in your wide receiver, but he's not going to be that big number 1 like you wanted him to be.
I wanted him bad for that upside, like that huge upside. But we will see you guys again on Friday. So we're going to talk about Thursday Night Football. It's a little bit of an in-depth look at Vikings-Eagles. Of course, last year, Vikings-Eagles played in primetime. I can't remember exactly what day it was on. I think it was Monday, if I'm not mistaken. And wow, what an abysmal performance by the Vikings last year. The biggest thing, as we know, is Kirk Cousins in primetime is not very good. He just historically usually is not very good. Is there a world? They are going to head to Philadelphia. This, of course, is going to be on Thursday Night Football, primetime, Amazon Prime as well. Is there a world where you think Kirk is going to finally play good in primetime? I know he's probably has before, don't get me wrong, but like most of the time, he's not great at all. And last year against this team, they were atrocious.
I'm actually really scared for this game if I'm a Vikings fan, especially since the Patriots defense is kind of what like helped them stay in the game. Like, yeah, I know the Eagles went up 16-0, but their defense really did hold back the Eagles when they got that big lead. And I feel like if the Eagles start off with a big lead, the Vikings defense is not good enough to hold them down for a whole game. The Vikings defense is atrocious in my opinion, and I really do feel like you're just going to see the Eagles. I think they're going to win by minimum 10 points. I know that might be crazy to say, but I think they're winning by 10 points minimum this game.
Yeah, this game, there's a world where I believe Kirk will be better in primetime, and there's a world where I believe that they're 0-1. They can't afford an 0-2 start, especially. I feel like the Lions playing Seattle, they could get off to a 2-0 start, especially with how Seattle looked week 1.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm hoping for a good game. I'm hoping Kirk is a lot better in this one and things go absolutely well, but I can't help but think the Eagles at home, Lincoln Financial Field, welcome in the Vikings. They're 1-0. Their offense didn't even look that great week 1. I can't help but think that the Eagles take care of business here. And I think the Eagles beat down the Vikings. I hope, like I said, it's not a blowout like last time. Because last year when these two teams played on primetime, the game was awful. I'm hoping that it's not the case.
This is my bold prediction for fantasy users. Jalen Hurts is going to be the number 1 fantasy quarterback this week, coming into this week. I promise you.
Okay. I don't mind it. I don't know if I have a bold prediction for this game. I guess my bold prediction would be Kirk plays good on primetime. There's my bold prediction.
And honestly, another thing that I want to bring up is I really do like a lot of the player props for this game. If you like to do betting, Jordan Addison's player prop is like 40 yards. Give me that all day, especially in a game like this where you think that the Eagles are probably going to get to an early lead, and especially with how Alexander Madison looked last week, that I feel like they're going to really have to throw the ball a lot. So for me, I just any stack with like Addison or Jefferson, I like starting this week in bets or even just in fantasy.
Yeah, I like it. But other than that, I mean, if you had this isn't your locked prediction because we'll reveal our locked predictions on Friday. But if you had to predict this one,
I already said it.
You got Eagles winning this one.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say the same thing. I think Eagles win it. Vikings start off to a rough 0-2. Eagles go 2-0. But hey, if the Vikings come out and win this one, I'll be very impressed. I'll say that right now.
I'm just calling it right now. You're going to see all 4 of the podcast members all pick the Eagles this week. I could not see one of us pick the Vikings. You don't
think Alex maybe picks the Vikings?
No.
Jared?
No.
Man. I think it'll be only Dustin and I again on Friday, if I'm not mistaken. We shall see. So we'll see you guys again on Friday.
But we'll still have everyone's predictions.
Oh, yeah. Everyone's predictions.
You will still be in, yep.
So thank you guys for watching as always. We'll see y'all in the next one. Week 1 was crazy. Hopefully more touchdowns is coming week 2. We need better scoring.
Especially with running backs. Like running backs did awful this week. I feel like most
tight ends did awful.
Yeah, tight ends. Wide receivers did good.
T. Higgins, Goddard, London. Please make some catches on Sunday or whenever you're playing.
I feel bad for the people that had to start Drake London.
Gosh.
He was like their number 1 or 2 wide receiver, and that
I wanted no shares of the Falcons offense for this reason.
I'm just glad.
Other than Bijan, I wanted Bijan, but
I got Bijan, so that's the only reason. That's the only reason I dodged Drake London. So thinking about it, thank you Bijan for following me in all 3 of my leagues because I probably would have had some Drake London if not.
Yeah, I passed on Drake London, and I'm glad, at least for now. But thank you guys for watching. We'll see y'all in the next one. This is In the Slant. We're saying peace.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Go ahead and click here to subscribe and, of course, to watch some more.